Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Behind the Worlds. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Rylan. I met Rylan a couple of months ago at a Supercell event here in San Francisco, and I remember him introducing himself as a world builder, and that really inspired me. And he's actually the perfect person to be here, and sharing his stories about creating immersive worlds, etc. Rylan, welcome to the podcast.
Wow, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Of course, yeah, my pleasure. I guess you've done a lot in your career across incredible companies, and I don't want to spoil it for people, but maybe we can start by asking, what's your story?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, my story, in fact, is as a storyteller. I've sort of looked at the intersections of new technologies like VR and AR and AI with great types of storytelling. To really push the medium forward. In fact, I kind of think of myself as a high-tech storyteller. So I got started doing VR, AR, and world building about 10 years ago. And yeah, I was like 14 years old or something like
Wow.
that. And I was really excited back then. Back then, the the Oculus was just becoming a big thing. And VR AR was still like a really, really new thing. It's still new today in a way, but it was like really, really new about 10 years ago. And I got the opportunity through being a journalist I was basically doing interviews with people and trying to meet people who were building really cool things in the VR AR space by going to conferences. I was a naturally very curious kid. I was always having a
Yeah.
lot of curiosity to figure out where the future was going, and I'm someone who's very attracted to the future. And
Yeah.
one of the people I got to meet, I was part of this program to be a kid reporter for Time magazine, actually, and I
Oh,
got to
wow.
meet Shigeru Miyamoto, who's the creator of Super Mario. And I mean,
Oh,
Mario
wow.
is my favorite game ever. And I got to meet him at the E3 conference. It was this big video game conference in LA. And I mean, I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 at the time, something crazy like
Yeah.
that. But I asked him where he thought the future was going in terms of video games. And he said VR and AR and virtual worlds, that's really where the future was going. So that was, about 10, 11, maybe 12 years ago. And but since that point, I just pursued a path of just becoming a expert in VR AR and building a lot of VR AR experiences.
Yeah.
I've had opportunities to work on things that are future looking spatial
Yep.
interfaces, say like Apple or Niantic, to even things that are like more consumer apps for different headsets, so like the Meta Quest or the Apple Vision Pro. And I love it.
And so I'm really a huge fan of the AR VR space, and it's one of the biggest reason why I started this podcast. I guess I have a question for you, where you've worked in the space for such a long time, and what do you think this immersive media lets you express that flat screens will never be able to?
I think what's really unique about the 3D capabilities of VR and AR versus flat screen is that there is this idea of being fully immersed in
Yeah.
something that you don't fully get with other forms. I have a mentor of mine, Dr. Tom Furness, who's a pioneer in virtual reality. He started the stuff back when the military was inventing VR. And he has a quote that VR is like writing on the brain in permanent ink. It's sort of like you are so immersed in this experience that it's almost like you actually lived it. You actually experienced that thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, back when books were a thing, we had to. I mean, books are still a thing, but back when books were the latest greatest thing, Gutenberg press and stuff like this, that was relying on human imagination to input the visuals and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Then movies and cinema were giving that visual. Games let you interact with those visuals and let you explore worlds with freedom in the sandbox open world environment.
Yeah.
And now with VR, I think that's really like you feel like you're actually inside the video game. And then, but there's another thing coming up with AR where it's so real because you're literally in the real environment, right? So it's like augmented reality. You feel like I mean, you're seeing the real world with different digital content superimposed into the field of vision that you have. And so I think both VR, which is fully immersive, and AR, which kind of blends your real physical environment with digital content, I think those two things are quite profound in terms of how immersive,
Mhm.
and I guess how impactful and memorable a digital experience can be for the human. And I think it's a great opportunity for human storytellers.
So, are you more of an AR believer in the future of VR, or do you have maybe you're like split between both? Because this is a big question in the community, and I think like I have my views on it, but I would love to hear yours. Like, are you more of a believer in one versus another?
I believe very profoundly in both. I think that it's still like there have been a lot of explorations in what VR AR can do so far,
Sure.
but I think there's a lot of still unexplored questions around the use cases and the role of VR AR in the world and society for humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been
Yeah.
exploring through a variety of projects. I mean, I've been doing from, thinking through how like AR might be used to help astronauts with NASA explore other planets,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
how maybe VR training, I was able to work with a Stanford, a neuroscientist, on how to use VR to train but neurosurgeons how to
Yeah.
perform brain surgery in VR. I think there's a lot of new emerging applications that are still coming, and that's why it's such an exciting frontier, because
Yeah.
that the VR and AR can let us do things that haven't been possible before.
All right. So you've touched on a couple of projects that you've worked on, and I'm actually really, really excited to talk to you about those. You've worked at, I've talked to people who worked in the space in every company, but NASA, doing VR at NASA is probably, you're probably the first person ever I meet. And I think a lot of people will be super interested. Like, how does that happen? Like, how do you get into NASA? What's VR at NASA? Like, why would people use virtual reality for space exploration? Like, it sounds super interesting. Like, can you share a bit more details about that?
100%. Well, I got involved when my team and I did a competition hosted by NASA to
Yeah.
basically invent a new kind of augmented reality user interface for astronauts who are going to be going back to the moon for what's called the Artemis mission. And the Artemis
Okay.
mission is a very interesting thing. It's like the first human mission to the moon in over 50 years, basically since the original NASA Apollo
Yeah.
missions. I mean, NASA and other space agencies have sent like rovers and, non-human probes and stuff like
Yeah.
this, but to actually put humans on the moon is a big deal. And
Yeah.
because, you know, the human astronaut experience is also a type of user experience that people can design for. And there is an opportunity that I was working on to figure out how to use AR VR as a solution to some of the problems that NASA astronauts might have faced at the first time that we went on the moon. So, for example, uh, there was this interface for the very first time that you know, the astronauts that went on the moon with Apollo, where you would like look down at this, uh, a variety of instruments on your arm to kind of get an idea of like your vital signs or
Yeah.
or navigation, stuff like this. But often when you need both hands to handle some kind of equipment or perform some kind of missions in space, you don't always have that ability to kind of do this motion of looking at your hand, especially because like these spacesuits are very, it can be somewhat bulky and cumbersome compared to just, walking in, you know, Louis Vuitton clothing or something like that. I don't know.
That
But
makes sense. That makes sense.
but so with but so me and my team had designed a new kind of augmented reality heads-up display that
Yeah.
gives you this kind of information directly integrated into the glass of the spacesuit helmet. And this makes it so you can
Oh,
basically get a visual of the information you need: vitals, directions, mission status, where your other astronaut crewmates are, and you can have both hands available to do whatever it is you need to do.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Uh, and that's a really, almost a way to make space exploration more accessible, in fact.
How was it? Like, how were the people? I don't know. Did you interact a lot with some of the NASA people? And
Yeah,
if so,
I mean,
how
it
are
was
they?
amazing. I got the
Yeah.
opportunity to get to go to Houston and Johnson Space Center, which is the
Oh, wow.
legendary, the legendary mission control
Yeah.
center, but it's also where they train new NASA astronauts as
Yeah.
well. And so I had meetings with NASA astronauts who are going to be going on the Artemis mission, and I got to hear firsthand what sorts of um hear about the like what kind of aspects of the mission could augmented reality aid in, and what kind of challenges astronauts face in space. And
Yeah.
what's so interesting about AR VR is it's a very spatial medium. It already
Right.
exists in a space, but to apply digital space to outer space is actually a pretty intuitive thing, actually.
Makes sense, actually. Now
Yeah,
that you say it out loud, it makes sense.
right? Like using technologies of virtual worlds to
Yeah.
explore other worlds. That's a thing.
Yeah. That's a thing. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that makes sense. And I think the Artemis mission is scheduled for April 2026, right?
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a variety of them as well. So there's going to be
Right. Okay.
multiple things going on, and yeah, super excited for that.
Is your work going to be used as part of one of these missions, or oh,
I believe so.
no
Yeah,
way.
like this is going to be a new kind of spacesuit that's been designed from the ground up,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, it's going to have a lot of cool toys, a lot of cool stuff as part of it. It's going to be amazing.
Are you proud? Like, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's just extraordinary is not even close enough of a word. I mean,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's literally out of this world.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
Literally.
that's true. That's awesome. Well, I could spend a whole like 3 hours talking about the NASA mission, but you've done so much, so I'm gonna try to like talk a bit about other things because I saw you won so many awards in the space and like you gave so many talks, etc. But I guess the next one I want to chat to you about is I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you launched actually one of the first immersive apps on like the Apple Vision Pro, if
Yeah,
that's correct. Yes.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I'm sad that the Vision Pro I think didn't have as much success as it should have, but I'm a big fan of like the headset itself. I think there's like, it's too expensive for what it is. There isn't enough content, etc. But actually, like I'm actually impressed by the fact that you got access to it early and like basically built apps for it like early and one of the first actually. So can you tell us a bit more about that app and how was it? Like how was the experience building one of those first apps on the Vision Pro?
Yeah, so it was I believe the summer of 2023
Yeah.
when Apple finally announced to the world that
Yes.
they are actually working on a VR AR headset, the Vision
Yeah.
Pro. And this was a big moment even for my journey because back, 10 years ago when I first started getting into VR, AR as a, I think 13, 14-year-old kid, I always was dreaming that Apple would come out with their own glasses because you know Apple has this a track record of creating inventions that get democratize new technologies to the masses. And
Right.
I, as a creator, got very excited by the potential for mass adoption of these immersive worlds and immersive headsets and technologies and glasses. And basically, as soon as Apple announced the Vision Pro, I decided to pitch them on an idea, on an app.
Okay.
I basically said, "I have this idea to make a VR app that will help people learn languages through immersive interaction. This is a new kind of way
Okay.
to, you know, maybe right now you you like before you would go to some class in school
Hmm.
to learn say Mandarin or Spanish or French,
Yeah.
or you might get an app on your phone that would sort of give you streaks if you complete enough lessons. But fundamentally, the core way you learn through reading and writing stuff was missing a key aspect of actually being in the situation where you would learn a language, to actually be in that environment. And that's something where virtual reality and augmented reality to a degree, which I'll talk about soon, is
Yeah.
very uniquely capable to um train people, including for learning languages. So it turns out I was like the only person to have this concept for a immersive language learning app. Apple accepted my idea, and I got the opportunity to work directly with the team prior to the public release of the Vision Pro as like a developer, and
Wow.
that was
Okay. Yeah.
super cool. I got to go visit their amazing office in Cupertino, and get early access to the device and the technology before it was a thing, and to get mentored by their team on the
Yeah.
specifics of a Vision Pro. And um, I gotta say, it was really mind blowing because, like, I think the Vision Pro, I think almost the kind of role in today's world is as this vision for the future in a way.
Yeah.
It's a really compelling look at where the future of all of these technologies is going. And so to build for these experimental, innovative platforms is really exciting because this is where it's all going. This is the future of storytelling, of interaction, of all these different things. And I think that's very exciting. And so with my app, it's called AR Lingo. It's on the App Store
Yeah.
actually. So
Okay.
you can
Oh
find a
wow.
Vision
Okay.
Pro, or actually I also made a version on the iPhone. It's there on the App Store. AR Lingo lets you have interactive dialogue conversations with 3D AI characters. So, using a generative AI, you can have these dialogue conversations with the characters, and you'll get feedback from the application.
One of the things I believe in is that someone should actually come and disrupt Duolingo. Like, if you think about Duolingo, the examples that you're trying when you're learning Japanese, for example, is I ate sushi or like I went to the park. But actually, I think there's like a way more interesting things that you can talk about. Like, for example, if I'm a fan of tennis, I would learn so much better if you give me example from tennis. And I think with LLMs now, that's kind of like unlocked. Like you can know the preferences of someone and like adapt the examples to them. And then if you add to it like the immersive environment where, I don't know, I can learn a language by being in a tennis stadium, talking to one of my favorite players and like talking to them in a certain language. And I think like creating that environment that is both more immersive, but also like linked to your preferences might make learning just so much more efficient rather than being sitting there on a phone saying, "Oh, I ate sushi." Like I don't know, it just hit me last time I was doing using Duolingo, and it was saying that, and I was like, "There's just so much better right now, like to do." But I agree with your like statement that these immersive technologies can actually really enable you to learn better, and it's not just languages, by the way. Like I think anything, right? Like history, like science, chemistry, etc. And since you've built like one of these like applications that went on in production and stuff, I guess my question is, what has been the hardest thing about building such a like an app, like a VR, AR, VR app, like for you? Like I've had the chance to build some, and I've found so many complications. But I'd love to hear like from you, who've put something out there. Like, what was one thing that stood out that was extremely hard?
I think that with this new medium, there are just no rules. There are no
Okay.
standards, no traditions, no, books of how to do a good VR app to fall back on. This is the Wild West. It's partly
Yeah.
what excites me a lot, but I think that we're in this experimental stage. I mean, I've done a lot of these hackathons where
Yeah.
the whole goal is to figure out at the very early stages of new devices, new hardware, how to build something, especially how to build an entire world. You know, a world has
Yeah.
characters, environments, interactivity. How do you think about building a world for immersive headsets and things like that? You know, I remember, but there was a thing where back I did this hackathon at a Stanford. It's called the Stanford XR Hackathon, and
Okay.
but my team had just gotten access to these new glasses from Snapchat called Snapchat Spectacles, and they're
Yeah.
really these cutting edge, lightweight, thin AR glasses that let you see stuff in the world. But I mean, we were some of the first developers ever to get access to those glasses. This was like they were not even selling them to the public. This was like developer only, and so with not much of a baseline to think like what makes a great snap AR experience, how do we even think about designing? And so we really had to go to the drawing board, sketch out ideas and think through what we could do, and we
Yeah.
came up with this AR multiplayer game, which by the way is a really more complex technical challenge compared to like a single kind of solo experience, but
Yeah.
it is worth it often to make a social multiplayer experience, because that, in my opinion, is actually one of the most impactful and powerful types of immersion, is when you're immersed with other real people who are expressed as avatars in the same digital space. And having that kind of immersive interaction, even when the maybe the real human people using VR are actually in different physical locations, but they feel like they're
Yeah.
in the same digital space. And so that's exactly the app I was working on with uh, Snapchat at the Stanford XR Hackathon, and so we ended up making this really cool AR multiplayer, a wizard spellcasting game where you would like cast spells at each other. And what's
Oh
really
wow.
interesting is we even, through the augmented reality. So imagine that two wizards are wearing these lightweight AR glasses. They see their physical environment and they can do these hand gestures to cast fireballs and spells and different kind of things at their opponents. But even the geometry of the physical space, the desks and the chairs and the couches and the walls are part of the what the AR glasses can detect. And so spells you would shoot out would collide with those physical couches and walls. And that's, I mean, this is unprecedented, the kind of type of innovation that a design for an AR experience like that can do, but because it uses this physical environment in a new way, this is still a very new
Yeah.
kind of experience for people maybe who this is not like your daily experience. This is some, but I do believe this is the future of where it's going, kind of blending the physical world with digital content.
Mm.
But I mean, it worked out
Mm.
great. We actually won Snapchat's AR prize at the hackathon, and it ended up being a great
Nice.
success. But there was a moment where we weren't sure how to tackle the challenge, because this is a completely new device and really a new, you know, a whole new design space that combined social interaction with this kind of mixed reality, augmented reality type of immersion. This was a very new kind
Yeah.
of experience, but I think that's exactly what's exciting about it.
You've touched on games, and I think now, like, we're touching the point that probably I love the most. XR, AR games, etc. And you and I met at the Supercell AI Innovation. At least we didn't meet. You were there, I saw you, and then I reached out to you. But and so basically at the Supercell AI Innovation Lab, which is some sort of an accelerator for like people building new types of games with AI, with from the company called Supercell. That I think they built like Clash of Clans and Clash
Right.
Royale, etc. And I actually have, the team leading the lab is now I'm now good friends with them, and so you've spent a lot of time thinking about game design, been there, and is there something that you're seeing in the gaming industry that most people outside the industry, like out, like as in like the just like pure people who consume, aren't prepared for yet? Like something you're seeing from inside the industry as a developer and like as a consumer, we're just not ready for it. Like, is there something that you see there?
I believe the biggest potential of AI in games is to create the most immersive, interactive worlds and
Mm,
characters possible that haven't been seen before. I think the potential for AI in world building is the biggest
mm,
potential out of all the possibilities with AI in games. And I think that because I think probably the closest comparison of things that have already been made today to that is big open world interactive
yeah,
games such as like Grand Theft Auto or
yeah,
Red Dead Redemption or Cyberpunk 2077, which have AI in a way because they have this kind of AI where characters can like react to where you're located in the virtual world, or they can respond to what you say to them, or you can have like a non-linear story. But I think the potential for AI to um, make a much more compelling simulation of life, because that's really ultimately what these open world games are all about. It's all about how to take a slice of life, as they say, like take a bit of humanity and simulate that to the point where you feel like this might as well be reality because you're I mean, think about this. You're simulating in these open world games where people live, where they go to work, like the
yeah,
NPCs and non-player characters might have these whole routines. But now when you add generative AI to that, they don't have to
yeah.
follow the routines that the developers coded manually.
Sure,
Like a routine might
sure.
be a character works at this like hot dog parlor on the streets, and but then when the day ends, they go back to their apartment in a certain area of Night City or something. I mean, okay, I had the most profound experience when I first played Cyberpunk 2077 that I've never
Mm-hmm.
had in any other game. And this experience was where early on in the game, you get access to your very own apartment in the world. And it's like your own home. I mean, you have
Mm,
like your own bed and living room and, place where you store your stuff. And then I remember the minute for the first time, I like spawned in that
yeah.
room, and then I walked out of the room into the city, and I saw, people walking around with their cyberware and seeing, hover cars flying in the distance. And even though that wasn't technically VR, but I felt completely immersed. I felt like this actually could be um like a reality, like because I felt this kind of
Mm,
identity that I actually have a
mm,
home in this world. I have my own apartment
yeah,
in Night City. And
yeah,
I think that type of storytelling combined
yeah,
with generative AI characters and even
yeah.
reactive environments, I think that is the biggest potential of AI in gaming.
And do you think that people are not ready for it? Or like people are like as in like consumer
Well,
wise? Because I think people are not ready for such a high quality type of like immersive experience. But like I'd love to
well,
get your thoughts.
yeah, I mean, I think innovation,
Yeah,
I believe is what people love about new
yeah,
games. I think innovation is one of the things that, um, I mean, people like new stuff. People don't want the same thing all the time, but I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
actually part of the potential of AI in games is that it can create new stories that weren't
right.
even possible before, that are customized to your play preferences and the way you move around the
Yeah,
world. And so combine even AI generated world building and open worlds
yeah,
with VR, and
yeah,
you just got the ultimate holodeck, like holodeck from Star Trek being like
yeah.
this thing where you could generate and simulate any kind of world and
Mm,
environment and walk
mm,
through it. I
mm,
think that's happening. That is happening.
yeah. Yeah. Talking about innovation and stuff. I was having this chat last time about someone from Nvidia working on the gaming. So Nvidia has this product called Ace, which is Avatar
Right.
Character Engine, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
Avatar Character Engine. And so I was talking to one of the leads there, and he was like, "Why do you believe so much in like AI in games?" Right? I was like, if you go out in the street now and you ask someone what is their favorite game, chances are it will be something like Last of Us, Uncharted 4, Modern Warfare 2, stuff that got out like in 2015, 2016, 2014, maybe 2020, like Last of Us Part 2. And so it's rare that the answer will be a game from the last like 5 years, let's
Sure.
say. Right. It's actually rare. Like, I'm not saying nobody. I think there are great games out there, like, Expedition 33 got out.
Yeah.
There's been
That's a
like
great
some
one.
great games, but like chances are it's going to be something from the between 2010 and 2018, 19. And I just find it sad. And I was like, that's why I believe in it, because something has to come and completely innovate it. Like, I want people to answer something that was built in the last year. Not like if you ask me now, all of my favorite games are from the 2010s, right? And I think that's why probably like the biggest belief I have is like something has to come and completely change it. Even though I know for some people in the industry don't want that to happen, and I've chatted with like all the game
Really?
studios in the world
Okay.
about this. Oh yeah, of course, not
Okay.
as a consumer, but as like studios, they're anti AI, and I've had a lot of like challenging
Oh, I
conversations
see.
with like
Uh-huh.
people at Riot, at like all of these like studios about this, but I actually really believe in it, and I think some innovation
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
new experiences that we've never felt before. That's probably my like end goal. It's like new experiences, something that people have never just imagined, and you're like, holy shit! Like, I'm in this like world. I'm in this completely different experience. Um, I guess maybe this leads me to a next question that I was really looking forward to like asking you, which is, let's say, like, with everything you've done, with all the experience you have, let's assume you have unlimited resources for one project. No limit. You have unlimited money, unlimited number of people, whatever you want. What's one, whether you want to call it experience, virtual world, whatever, what would you want to build? Like, what would you do?
I think um I want to build the most ambitious and innovative AI generated open world game. I think
Okay.
that and but I think that is actually not fully the vision, because I think what a game is and what it's used for, I think can go beyond how it is for today. In other words, the open world AI generated game is kind of the analog that we have today, but I think that
Yeah.
what we think of as games was really an interactive experience. I think even goes a lot beyond entertainment. Like, I'm thinking that the the use cases of world building and immersion um extend to, from entertainment to education
Yeah.
to medicine to
Yeah.
space exploration. And I think that um having this kind of, I predict as a futurist that having a AI agent of some kind that
Yeah.
can basically in real time on demand as you need it uh give you the experience you need at a certain time
Yeah.
to solve or to support the human in the way they would like. I think that will be a very profound thing. Like right now, we have ChatGPT and sort of
Yeah.
text-based models which give us text answers, but I think a really big deal will be because when we have these glasses on one day, like meaning like you're wearing AR glasses all day throughout your day as you're walking on the street, uh basically you'll be able to experience any kind of experience you'd want to have that you know you'll have more control over how your life plays out than ever before. And I think having this AI centric XR reality that
Mm.
can, for example, as you're walking on the streets, you get relevant context about um the signs and locations that you're seeing. I think that when it comes to transitioning to the very immersive stuff of like what we call VR, you
Yeah.
can really connect with these AI characters in ways that weren't possible before. But I think unifying that in one experience, unifying the AI um, kind of agentic storytelling with the full immersion and when
Yeah.
needed the more augmented reality style thing, kind of unifying that in a connected experience, I think that'll be profound. And but but one more thing I'll say is I think that from what I've seen, there'll always be new technologies happening all the time and new inventions. But I
Sure.
think the
Yeah.
thing that lasts forever is stories. I think I remember Steve
Mm,
Jobs having a quote. Steve Jobs was heavily involved with Pixar, and
yes.
uh, he, I think I once saw him reflect that, um, because he did Apple as well, that new tech and new devices get innovated and invented all the time, but they're much more quickly replaced by new devices and um, new programs, new software, new hardware. But
Yeah.
with stories, those can last forever. I mean, I think even like music, I know people who still listen to. I mean, look, a classical music is in, in
Still
certain
a
ways
thing.
like in the hundreds of years old. If you like,
Yes.
I don't know, some like 60s music, and then even with stories, I mean, we're still telling the Odyssey and the Iliad
Yeah.
and
I mean,
stuff
there's
like
a movie
this.
coming out, The
That's
Odyssey
right.
from Christopher
There is,
Nolan.
there
So
is.
yeah.
But that's why I think I'm very excited to use these
Yeah.
new technologies to just make the most ambitious stories. And so, but when I was saying to make the most ambitious, innovative, AI generated
Yeah.
open world game, I say that
Yeah.
because once you make a story that can change and adapt and evolve basically forever, that is basically a story that I think could remain relevant and meaningful to people's lives for generations.
That's very powerful. At some point I was thinking about Ready Player One when you were speaking, and then I was
Yeah,
like, no, actually,
yeah.
it's even bigger than that. Like, because if you, that's awesome.
Like
I mean, yeah,
like a Ready Player One is interesting because
yeah,
both the Ready Player One and Snow Crash before
yes,
that was also a popular book,
yeah,
um, and had the kind of original concepts for the metaverse in a way.
yes. Snow Crash
But
was in the 90s, I think, right?
I think
90s
so,
or
yeah.
early 2000s. It's
Right.
just crazy. Like
And so it's
me and
amazing
Chris, yeah,
how sci-fi over time
yeah,
becomes real. But
yeah,
what's interesting is they had this sort of pretext in the story of those great stories that um the real world was kind of being full with disaster, and XR, AR, VR was there to help humans sort of avoid the real world's problems. But I actually believe
yeah.
in a different future where XR can actually solve real world problems, because I think that having this spatial intelligence where our devices and AI assistants can help us tackle real world problems,
Mm,
I think that actually could be the thing, that really could be the thing. Um, so I think that's something really exciting to work on.
I want to end this. Like, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
That I like to end my episodes with is for students or creators out there that are interested in this. I think actually most young people are interested in some shape or form in like VR, AR, virtual worlds, movies, games, whatever you want to call it, right? Like storytelling, right? In a more like immersive way. What is like what's the first small step they should take today in case they want to build a career, a portfolio, or anything in this space? Like, what would you do if you were 14 again and you had access to all of these tools? Which, by the way, I think would be a dream for us. What do you think they or you would do if you were younger, and what's the step you would take?
I think that following one's curiosity, and
Mm,
but I think even regardless, to become a great storyteller, I think is a great uh thing to think about with regards to using the technologies, because there's a
Yeah.
ton of technologies out there and a lot of great
Yeah.
tools always coming out, sort of in how Steve Jobs said, there's always new tech getting
Yeah.
replaced. But I think that the capacity for especially a human to come up with a great way to use the technologies is rare. I had a mentor, Mark Bolis, who was very early with a lot of VR development and like the Oculus and stuff like that. And he once
Yeah.
told me that there's kind of this idea of tech push and tech pull. Tech push being like, do you start with some new technology innovation and then figure out the use cases that might emerge out of it? So, for
Yeah.
example, starting with the Apple Vision Pro and then figuring out what could be the
Yeah.
coolest experience to make for the Apple Vision Pro. Or tech pull is more like you start with an opportunity, a human need, something
Yeah.
that people want, and then figure out what kind of solution will figure that out. And I think that there isn't always product development can involve both, but
Yeah.
I would say that uh there is something about sometimes stepping away from pure technology, really engaging
Mm.
with the humanities, with social interaction and the arts. I would say the creative arts that I think a lot of technologists might off might sometimes overlook. And I'd
Yeah.
say that is something that I actually promote a lot in what I do, is the intersection of the arts and the technology and the humanities. And I think that's I think in a way the secret weapon that AI can't always do for you, because that's
Right.
in a way the
Yeah.
role of humanity going into the future.
Yeah.
And I think that's the future I I think will be great to enable, is humanity being the creative force and AI enables that creativity.
I think that's a very powerful message. That's a very powerful message. I like the fact that you bring up Steve Jobs a lot. People don't realize sometimes how great of a storyteller he is. Like you
Yeah,
watch his keynote about the iPhone. I still watch it sometimes, like once a year
yeah,
at least.
yeah,
And the way he opens with like telling a story with like touching emotions.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a skill we don't have. Like I wish in high school we had this, where this is how you tell a great story. Like last time I was in a hackathon, like, and I saw so many great projects going on, and I felt like there was a lack of skill in like presenting the project in a
Mhm.
very meaningful and like as a story. And we as a species like evolved like listening to stories like since evolution, right? And so that's why when someone even like presents starts with a like 10 years ago this happened, it's way more engaging than if you hear like this is what I'm gonna work on, right? Like there is something about like how do you like become a great storyteller and how do you frame your projects and like your work and yourself to
Yeah.
the world, that I think is a skill that people don't necessarily learn early enough. And I think like your advice is really is really powerful actually. It's yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, I mean,
Rylan, thank you so much.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna to say that to become a great storyteller also
Yes.
requires practice. I got started
Yes.
early on in journalism, where I was telling stories and interviewing people,
Yeah.
both for like Time Magazine and the LA Times. I then got to give presentations about my apps and games and VR things to conferences and speak
Yeah.
about them. And I think that's part of how one becomes a storyteller, is to
True.
engage in storytelling and then creating experiences that unleash one's creativity and storytelling. I think is actually a gift to humanity, to create something
Yeah.
that you know a piece of arts, a technological digital experience that's so profound that it, the 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 audience or the user of that experience or product might not know the face necessarily of who made
Mm-hmm.
it, but there is
Mm-hmm.
this kind of inherent human connection that happens when, like, the creator of the product and the
Yeah.
recipient of it in a way connects in like through quantum entanglement in a way, through this kind of shared story that emerges. So I think that's one of the most profound things that humans can do for each other.
Yeah, that's I agree with that. Very powerful message. Um, Rylan, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming
Thank
and
you.
like sharing all of your stories. I'm looking forward to seeing all the crazy stuff you will continue to build. I'm following you and I'm following your work, and you and I are in close touch. And yeah, I'm sure we're gonna keep in touch like closely. Thank you so much for your
Incredible.
time, man.
Thank you for having me. Exciting.
Of course, my pleasure.